Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker. Have you ever read through the Bible? Reading the Bible can be intimidating. It can be time-consuming. Some parts are even downright confusing or seem irrelevant to the modern believer. After all, you probably ask yourself, how could Leviticus be relevant to my life? Well, Revive Daily takes you on a chapter-by-chapter journey through the complete Bible, focusing on the Messiah's love for you. It's an invitation to join author and encourager Laura Kim Martin as she helps you remove the intimidation, discover the relevance, and fall in love with the God of your heart who longs to know you more deeply. Laid out in an easy-to-follow daily format, this devotional brings you encouragement and insight from each chapter of the Bible throughout the 2-year journey. Reading the Bible turns from daunting to doable, helping you learn to hear God's voice, speak to your heart, and encourage you to live out His love letter to you. Laura Kim Martin lives in the Dallas area with her husband, Kyle. Their 4 children. Together they founded the ministry Time to Revive to reach the lost and encourage the church. Through years of trusting the Lord's faithfulness, she passionately encourages others to press on in their faith journey. You can learn more about them at timetorevive.com. Joining us now to talk about her new book, Revive Daily, is Laura Kim Martin. Laura, welcome to Revealing the Truth.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Well, we're delighted to have you. I think that anybody that challenges you, encourages you, and helps give you the tools to navigate something that God has given us, one book, one author. And it's seamless, but yet most people take it as something that's much too complicated. I struggle with the names. I struggle with the words. I don't really understand the setting. And we're a very strong proponent of the right interpretation of Scripture being contextual, knowing what's going on at the time. What are they dealing with at the time? Then moving it into a 21st century context. Well, the modern day church has taken us and fast forwarded us to the 21st century context, but the foundation of understanding that things like life happens at the well, all the things in the Bible that happen surrounding the well are some of the most prominent stories of the Bible. It's where you found your wife. It's where Jesus met the woman. There's so many aspects of that. And what's so wonderful about what you're doing is you're taking these in sound bites and helping encourage people as a companion guide to navigate something that people need to take your hand and walk you through it. We're all supposed to do it ourselves, but where's that motivation come from? There are many who are motivated. I read daily and commit myself to the daily reading of Scriptures and have for a good part of my life, but that's not normally the case. There's an incredible backstory to this whole project. And I wanted to spend the first part of this conversation with you talking about that backstory, because you and Kyle kind of went on a journey, and your journey began as a child. Mm-hmm. Take us back to that journey, then step us through to where you and Kyle met and how this began to evolve into what it is today, which I consider to be a movement, not just a project.
Amen. Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity to share the story of Jesus in my life and how I came to faith. I think everyone has a story of Jesus transforming our hearts and transforming us into the person He wants us to be for His kingdom and to be used for His glory. And I grew up in a Christian home. My mom and dad both came to faith when they were first married, and they raised their 3 children, and I was the one in the middle. in Jesus, to know who Jesus is. As a young girl at age 4, I was that little girl that said yes to Jesus and was baptized at age 6. And I had a lot of opportunities to exercise my walk with the Lord through growing up in church, through mission trips, through different opportunities the Lord allowed in growing up in a family of faith. But I would go back to the Lord really calling me in high school to take it serious and to make it my own faith. And, it was a wake-up call, and it kind of, it can seem silly, but to me, as a 16-year-old, it was really important. One of the things the Lord commands us to do, 2 things in the New Testament: to love him with all our heart, soul, and mind and strength, and to love others. And at 16, I had a lot of other loves in my life, idols, the Bible calls them. And I think that's something that can get in the way. And he taught me that lesson by taking away like soccer, like things that were important to high schoolers, right? Like, it might seem silly as an adult to be like, oh, well, you were benched. But as a 16-year-old, that was a lesson the Lord taught me, where he removed that idol from me. And I had a choice at that moment in my life to resist it and go find another idol to fill that void of satisfaction, or to say, okay, Lord, why are you allowing this to happen, and what can I learn from this? And what he taught me was, I had begun to say no to walking out mission trips, and I had said yes to playing on soccer tournaments. The minute I said yes to soccer over the mission trips, the Lord took soccer away. And I received that as a discipline from him. And I remember that moment being a marker for me. And the Lord said, Laura, do not put any other idols before me. I am the Lord your God. And from that moment, he started speaking to me, like he gave me opportunities to exercise my faith in him, to lead me. I was making decisions for college, and I encourage, I have 4 kids now. My oldest is going to be 16 this week. And as she's preparing for college, it's not what makes sense. It's Maya, where's the Lord leading you? Like, we are going to pray about that. And that was a decision I made at 18, where I made the decision that didn't make sense, to move away from my family, to go to a college that I didn't know anyone. I ended up going to Taylor University in Indiana. And it was because I watched the Lord confirm my steps in that process. And that was like the first marker that I remember in my life of taking a step of faith after saying, Lord, I love you with all my heart, my soul, my mind, my strength. And I don't want to put any other idols before you. Will it be a temptation? Yes. Yes. But I want to follow you. And so I remember even being nervous in that decision of where to go to college. And the Lord then put a very obvious physical, like, only God can make that confirmation moment happen, that I received it. I said, okay, that's from you. I'm going to walk that out by faith. And so that is like early on, those early steps of faith. And those are just the way that the Holy Spirit has led me throughout my life, through highs, through lows. I did go to Taylor. You asked where Kyle and I met. And Kyle and I met my freshman year. And we started dating that freshman spring, and we dated for about 4 years. There was a season that the Holy Spirit spoke to me. Again, it didn't make sense, but he said, you and Kyle need to take a break. And so we did. And it was in that season for Kyle where he was able to walk through a season of surrender to the Lord. He surrendered at that time sports, like being in the sports world, management and success and things that were really just like the Lord was opening up those doors, and yet his heart wasn't in the right place. And it was in that moment, our senior year, that he completely surrendered to the Lord, and the Lord called him to walk by faith and to go wherever the Lord led him, whether it would be in a career that was in the secular world or in ministry. But the key was that his heart was no longer filled with that fleshly desire of earthly success and achievement, but rather to go where the Lord led him and to see what God did. And it was at that point we got back together. A year later, we were engaged, and we stood up at our wedding and said, we don't know what the Lord has for us, but we know that we are going to trust the Lord, and we're going to go wherever He leads us. So that was the beginning of our journey. That was back in 2001.
So you were obedient. You initiated the break with Kyle?
I did. I was on a mission trip in Mexico. A lot of college students will take J-term to go and have a fun adventure. And the Lord led me to Mexico for 3 weeks that year. And there was a night that our team said, I want you all to get away and just go hear from the Lord and see what He has to say to you tonight. And we were supposed to hear about our team, but I really wasn't wrestling with our team, and the Lord just directed me to start praying for Kyle. And He said, you need to write a letter to him because it's not going to make sense when you go back. But it was one of those heart pumping moments where I wrote out the words the Lord gave me to give to Kyle when I got back that said we needed to break.
And how did he receive that?
It was really challenging. He didn't. And we didn't break up that first week back. We because it didn't make sense. We actually really liked each other, and we were best friends, and we didn't fight all the time. But I knew there was that 5% of me that said there's something not right. He's not fully devoted to the Lord, and that's what drove me to finally be obedient. So it happened, I would say 2 months later is when we finally said we can't talk anymore, and kind of went different directions that summer and that spring. And then even when we came back together in the fall, and he had changed, transformed, but I hadn't had time to bear witness to that yet. I told him, no, we're done. And he wasn't quite having it. So we stopped talking again that fall, and I just observed him. I observed him quietly without talking for 3 weeks. And I observed a new humility. And the Lord told me, you're not going to marry Kyle. And I really believe I didn't marry who he was, but the Lord wanted me to marry this person that He had it was in the process of transforming him into, which is a man of humility. And that's what I got to observe. And I remember going to him after 3 weeks and saying, I'm ready to talk again. I think the Lord's, guided me in this process, and I'm ready to get to know you again. And a month later, we were engaged. So the Lord transformed his heart into humility and complete surrender. And that's I found that pretty attractive.
It's interesting because every man will say to you, if he's a believer, I want a Proverbs 31 wife.
Mm-hmm.
But very few ever contemplate what it means to be a Proverbs 31 man. And we don't really study who her husband was, what characteristics he must possess in order to be able to have a woman who is esteemed in the city, a woman who was called blessed by her children. What kind of man is that is the counterpart? She's the ezokenegdo, she's the helpmate to the Proverbs 31 man. Mm-hmm. So he transformed through a love for you. And what a great motivation to want to seek out the Lord, because his heart was broken, but that's exactly what had to happen. His heart had to break, had to be circumcised. That heart of stone had to be replaced with the heart of flesh. And it had to be noticeable. Mm-hmm. And what you just described is what God wants for all believers, to be noticeable, to be set apart, to be different, to not be the same as the world, to be someone who is different. There's a light, there is a softness, there's a humility about them that makes it very attractive in the sight of one who seeks the heart of God first.
Right.
So your story begins, and the two of you go on this journey together in marriage. What does that look like? Because things are stirring, things are moving. This isn't just a marriage of two loved ones. This is the marriage of a very committed, believing wife who has a less mature, believing husband who's in the process of transformation, being remade, and you are to be a part of that process of his remaking, and in that to create that cord of three strands that King Solomon so beautifully talks about. So how were those first years, and how did they develop, and how did the vision come about? Because those were the formative years as you were searching for your identity. You had an identity in Messiah. He now had his own identity in Messiah. But what was your joint identity in Messiah? And how did that contribute to this new vision that's now culminated into the beginning of an actual movement?
Yeah. Well, he also grew up in a very strong Christian home. And so we both had that model of marriage going into our marriage that I believe really helped us walk out how to honor one another in humility, in love, just as it says in First Corinthians, love is patient and love is kind, all of those attributes. We really, the way we operated our marriage was through prayer. I remember we were given the advice to pray in the morning and pray at night. And if you can't pray together at night, find a way, because that means that something's off. And so I mean, that's just how that would be like the center of our marriage, I would say. And the Lord led us to Nashville, Tennessee for our first year. And it was really like one weekend we were engaged, and we said, Lord, where do you want us to live? And we both went away that week. I think we both had things, and we just asked the Lord for confirmation. Kyle saw a license plate, and I felt peace in my spirit, like that's where he saw a Nashville license plate. And so we ended up in Nashville. I will say our senior year, the Lord took Kyle on quite a journey in his own life. So, I mean, there's layers and layers to the Lord revealing, like giving him vision for his future and what the Lord was calling him to. But it's one thing to know what the Lord is calling you to, and then what are the steps to get to it. So the Lord really had to strip. My husband's a very strong entrepreneur. Like, God's gifted him in some amazing ways, but it's how does the Lord want to use that at certain times? And so for a year, Kyle, we lived in Nashville, and Kyle could not get a job besides, first it was delivering the USA Today newspaper for 3 months, and then the Lord opened the door to deliver dry cleaning. Kyle owned and sold a coffee shop in college, and Starbucks would not even hire him in that seasons of our life. And so it was this stripping away of anything that Kyle wanted to make happen. Even starting a nonprofit in that first year, he had a whole PowerPoint put together, and it was just like that constant stripping. And then God put mentors in our life, older people. That happened this summer. That we were apart for Kyle. I've always had like women pouring into my life, and we had a couple in Nashville that the Lord just put in our life that was so important. And it got to a point where they said, Kyle, I think you need to go to seminary and study the Word. If you want to teach people about the Bible, if you want to teach people about Jesus, go to seminary. And my husband owned a coffee shop as a business major because it was all about the experience, not the education. And so that was a radical mind shift for us to go to seminary. But the Lord directed us not even to any seminary, but specifically through this mentor couple to DTS, Dallas Theological Seminary in Dallas. And so we applied. Kyle got turned down a couple times because he didn't have like a clear direction, or his grades weren't the greatest as an undergrad, but the door opened, and we moved to Dallas. He went to Dallas Theological. We actually maintained an apartment complex and managed it, 58 units, an old apartment complex for 5 years. The Lord just kind of kept laying out our steps. Kyle went on to get his doctorate at Gordon Theological Seminary during those years, and it was after that the Lord opened up the door for us to start. He got invited to a city. He worked at a church for a couple years. I mean, there's just all these steps, right? God takes us on these journeys, and when our hands are like this, there's no like 5-year plan. It's just like these open doors. And so one of the pivotal moments was when Kyle graduated from Dallas Seminary, and we had just had a baby, and I went away for 2 weeks that summer to kind of just give Kyle some time to write. He wanted to write about reviving the church, and he ended up fasting that week and prayed, and the Lord gave him a vision to do a 40-day revival in Dallas, to pray for revival and to gather all churches of every denomination for 40 days and seek the Lord for revival. It was a pretty radical step of obedience. I think we were 25. We didn't have a platform. He was a maintenance man in an apartment complex, but yet the Lord gave him favor. And it was at that point we had 2 babies, and I was home with them. One was about 5 weeks old, and my oldest was 20 months old, and she came down with a rare cancer-like illness. And this was all in the season of launching the ministry, launching what we didn't know was going to be the ministry, but just that first step of obedience. He had written a book, had gotten published. It was just this whole climax. And then our daughter got pretty ill, very ill. She was on chemo and steroids for a year with this rare blood disease. So that took me through an intense journey as a mom, as trusting the Lord with my daughter, and the Lord healed her. She's the one that's going to be 16 this week. But it's these steps of faith that the Lord brought us on. And then in 2010, after 2 years as being a pastor of revival and discipleship at our church, they told Kyle that they would tag that on as part of his pastoral title just to get him in. That the Lord launched us into Time to Revive, the ministry we founded in 2010. And initially, for years, from 2007 to 2018, we traveled around the nation, and we poured into communities that invited us in, and we gathered the church of all denominations, and we prayed, and we evangelized, and we equipped the saints for the return of Christ. We allowed them to go out into their communities and pray with people, to love, to listen, discern, and respond. And we still have 60 plus missionaries right now in America that are a part of Time to Revive that are doing that. So that was that journey. And then 2018 is when we started Revive School, which was a shift that the Lord led us on.
It's an amazing story because God's hand is throughout all of this and taking you on a very circuitous path to come full circle to realize that the core of what is missing is a deep understanding of the Word. Excuse me one second.
Yeah.
And so as part of this, you developed a school, and then you began to realize that this is something even larger than community. This is something that if you take that commandment from Deuteronomy 6:5 that Jesus started, in the Hebrew mind, we hear the whole of the passage. The whole of the passage is love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your might. And these words that I command you this day are to be on your heart. And you are to teach them to your children. And you are to talk about them when you walk along the way, and when you rise up, and when you lie down, and tie them as reminders. And so you know. So it's more of the beginning of a passage and a thought that the hearers at the time that Jesus spoke these words would have heard this what's called the Vahavta in Hebrew. It's a whole, it's the whole portion.
Okay.
And when did it occur to you that revival was going to have to begin at home? That it had to start in the heart of the person before it could reach the community? When did that revelation come to you?
Yeah. Well, Kyle had gone back, our ministry went back to Indiana, northern Indiana, where we had done almost a year of ministry. And while he was there, re-engaging with this community, rallying them together to go out, and just praying and asking the Lord, what is the vision for this community? The Lord gave him the verse that's from Acts 19. It's when Paul, it says here in verse 9, it says, Paul withdrew from them and met separately with the disciples, conducting discussions every day in the lecture hall of Tyrannus. And this went on for 2 years, so that the inhabitants of Asia, both Jews and Greeks, heard the message of the Lord. And so, so often we think, we had been evangelizing discipleship, but the Lord put this passage on Kyle's heart to say, what if we gather, even if it's 12 people in northern Indiana, and we teach the scriptures and we study the scripture for 2 years? What if in doing that, that is what gives transformation? What if in doing that, then the whole world will know, then the nations will be gathered, then Israel will know, then the Jews will become jealous of what we have as believers? What if? And so it was a simple step of obedience. He called me. I remember it was at the gas station. He goes, Laura, I just want you to know the leadership team, because I'm home with the kids. I don't homeschool, but I'm home, just keeping them together so he can travel as the Lord leads. He said, I just want you to know, I think we're going to pull back. I'm going to study and teach through the entire Bible for 2 years. Okay, I said, that sounds great. We'll pray about that. And so anyway, in 2 months, we had, I think, about 75 students signed up in northern Indiana. And Kyle said, if I have 12, Jesus had 12. If I have 12, I will do this. And so what ended up happening was Kyle was here in Dallas. We have a Richardson, which is the suburb north of Dallas, office for Time to Revive. And our team put together a studio, and he recorded 29-minute lessons on just about every chapter of the Bible. Some chapters are combined, in the daily, and it's not 5 days a week; it's 7 days a week for 2 years. And he taught, and he came to me and he said, Laura, he said, I think I want you to close each video, kind of how you close services at times when you travel with me. And I said, okay, kind of felt like a challenge, but I said, if that's what you're feeling, okay. And so we did it for a week, and it was just like not right. When you just feel like, I can do this through the strength and power of the Lord, but this feels really hard. And so Kyle and I prayed and about it, and we just came together, and I just heard the Lord say, let it go. And let that go. Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord, and in due time, he will lift you up. And so as I said to Kyle, I really don't think I'm supposed to do that. Like, it seems kind of neat to be a part of this project with you, but I just think for now I'm supposed to let it go. And he said, well, I heard that you're supposed to write, heard from the Lord. And he goes, you get up and journal every day, and you spend time with Jesus every day. So why don't you just write what you hear from the Lord in the passages that we go through? And so that's how my part, which is Revive Daily, the devotional, started with this Revive School project. And so the students for the 2 years, and it ended up, we had kind of students from around the country that we had known from pouring into different communities. There was even a small group in Liberia, Africa that grew into different communities, but they would study the Word, they would read the daily encouragement that I would write. A team of ours did questions, and then Kyle has a sermon on every book of the Bible, every chapter of the Bible on reviveschool.org. And so that is the project we did for 2 years. And it transformed our lives. It changed our it has enhanced our ministry. And God in 2020 has done amazing works that we never dreamed or imagined. I remember when we're all done recording, at the end of 2019, we stood in front of a lot of our donors and our supporters, the people that really undergird us, and we said, we don't know what God has in store. Whew, but we just finished what the Lord did in these 2 years. And so 2020 has been a neat year to watch the steps that God's unfolded.
What a great story, what a great revival, what a great foundation to be laid for something that when we return from break we're going to talk about has been a pattern of study that you have paralleled, which has impacted the Jewish world for almost 1,800 years. And it is something that takes you richer, deeper into the scriptures, makes them personal, understandable, digestible, and puts you on a path of understanding where you can feel closer and a more intimate relationship with not just the text, but the author himself. We're going to take a short break. We're talking with Laura Kim Martin, talking about the new devotional from Genesis to Revelation called Revive Daily. We're talking about year 1. Year 2 will come out later this year, but it is a daily journey through the scriptures. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, host of Revealing the Truth, Revealing the Bible, and Revealing Prophecy, seen every week on the Igniting Nation Broadcasting Network. Our daily on-demand programming is available on our Apple and Android apps and on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Android TV. We broadcast live Monday through Friday through our apps, on our website, ignitingnation.com, and on Facebook Live. You can listen daily on our audio platforms on Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, and iHeart. Our lineup of best-selling authors bring you the most in-depth biblical insights into the most pressing issues of our time, including prophecy, Israel, spiritual warfare, and a wide variety of contemporary Christian issues impacting the body of Messiah around the globe. If you missed the live show, you can always catch up on the Igniting Nation YouTube channel. Follow us on social media and join us as we endeavor to heal the nations with the Word of God.
With today's smartphone technology, news, information, sports, and entertainment is widely available and almost unbounded. But what about the information that believers in Yeshua are looking for? Well, now there's an app for that. Igniting a Nation now has apps available for Android and iPhone. With our app, you'll gain access to everything you would in our website, from our featured guests to our live streaming shows. Visit Google Play or the Apple Store and download Igniting a Nation's new app today.
Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to study right by my side through the Biblical Truth Library. Imagine having access to over 1,000 hours of audio and video teachings available to you through our website on a subscription basis or via our Apple and Android apps on an a la carte basis. Whichever method you choose, we promise to deliver new insights into the living Word of God as seen through the eyes of a Jewish believer. If you hunger and thirst like millions around the world for a deeper walk with God and the revelation of new understanding of the Scriptures, visit ignitingnation.com and click on the Biblical Truth Library or on any device with our free app. Don't let another day go by without receiving your heart's desire for a new depth of understanding into all of God's Word. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to join me and my special featured guests twice per month with Rabbi Zeb Parat and Carl Gallups, and monthly with Dr. Michael Heiser, Dr. Michael Lake, Dr. Timothy Jennings, Dr. Mark Baker, Dr. Jeffrey Johnson, Drs. Michelle and Mark Sherwood, Dr. Kim Moss, Derek Gilbert, Peter Rosenberger, Brandon Gallups, Steve Fair, Stephen Black, for in-depth insights into Israel, prophecy, the unseen realm, the brain, spiritual warfare, overcoming shame, mysteries of the Bible, prophetic insights, the sensational and the supernatural, caregiving, addiction recovery, understanding the divided heart, same-sex attraction, and much more. We're proud to feature some of the greatest biblical minds from both Israel and around the United States. Check out our featured guest lineup and 24/7 feed on ignitinganation.com or watch by topic on any device with our free apps. If you can't find what you need, you're just not looking in the right place. Follow us on social media and download our free apps today. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to join me and Israel's #1 rated guide, Edo Canaan, for our annual Israel trip. Our 2022 trip is now open for registration for our 18th trip to Israel. Our trip will take us from Tel Aviv to the Galilee, down to the Dead Sea, and 4 nights in Jerusalem. You will walk where Yeshua walked and watch the Bible turn from black and white to living color. Visit ignitinganation.com/events and download the registration form today. No, it's not too early to take advantage of our payment plan designed to fit any budget. All of our trips sell out, and we want you to experience this life-changing journey. Registration is now open for April 2nd to 13th, 2022, and we promise you, you will never read your Bible the same way again. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heart lines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're talking with Laura Kim Martin, author of Revive Daily, a devotional journey from Genesis to Revelation. Laura, welcome back.
Thank you.
I told you before we went on the show that in the Jewish world, we have a simultaneous annual reading cycle separated by the first 5 books, which are read annually, and they're done in portions. And so there's an assigned portion for the week, and they will have a reading in the synagogue of a smaller portion of it, but during the course of each day of the week, you are to read the entire portion, so that for those in the synagogue who follow it will have read the first 5 books in a 1-year period on an annual recurring basis. And then the rest of the prophets and the writings are in a biannual or triannual cycle, depending on how you do it. And those portions are broken out in an order that kind of parallels. So you would have a reading from the Torah, from the first 5 books, and then a reading to go with that. And in many cases, it refers back. It's somewhat interconnected. There's a little bit of Methodist madness, and it's been going on since around the 2nd century as a way to keep the people connected with the Word of God. And so in the synagogues today all over the world, they're all reading the same portions at the same time. Very different than what you find in the church, where nobody's really on the same page except for maybe on Easter or Christmas time. But in the synagogue, it is on the same page at the same time all around the world in kind of a uniform pattern. You may be in a different place, but you're in the same section. What you have done is very much a complement and a parallel to that, and something that has been long needed to unify. You know, God talks about unity. Behold how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell together in unity. And to find yourself on the same page with someone, that happens, but not always in the same book.
Yeah, right.
This helps guide people through, where they can take comfort in the fact that there are others who are following along in this same pattern at the same time, and then connect with you at timetorevive.com to get augmented and supplemental teachings and to go deeper into this. But I want to talk with you about how you structure this, because you have a particular, I don't want to call it methodology, but you have a pattern. And in this pattern, you have a reading cycle. And you set the reading cycle up deliberately. It is not random, it is deliberate. So kind of take us into your thinking as to how you set it up, and then why at the very back are there check boxes?
Yeah, well, I'll jump to that one. I think check boxes is how a lot of us are wired, because it makes us feel like we're accomplishing something. It shows us where we're going, where we are today, and when are we going to be done? When is the finish here? And so I think that's important to just have a reading plan, and that's what we want. But I would hope that at times we get away from the reading plan and we just enjoy the daily of spending time in the Word of God, to spending time resting in Jesus and in his presence. But it's there for those of us, myself included, that does like to check off boxes. And, it is structured. So I will say it's a 2-year journal. So the one that you have there on your desk, is year 1, Revive Daily, that is complemented with reviveschool.org, which is where my husband taught through that. And so even though the tagline on the front of this devotional says a devotional journey from Genesis to Revelation, you won't find yourself in the Old Testament the entire first year. What we did was we broke up the Bible in 10 sections. So you start with the Pentateuch, and then you jump to the Gospels after you've read through the first 5 books of the Bible. Then you jump to the first 4 books of the New Testament, and then you're back into the historical books, and then you go back into, I think you'll end the year with the book of Acts, which is so neat to end the year reading about Paul's journeys and just the power of the Holy Spirit. And then year 2 begins with Job. And so that is the flow. Like, you go back and forth through these 10 different sections. And so I find it refreshing. I found it refreshing as a reader when I was going through it to do it that way. Another thing, I've structured your daily readings in Revive Daily, is every day you'll have a daily reading, and there are dates on here, but there's also day numbers and weeks. And so if you picked up a Revive Daily today, and today's not January 1, do I need to catch up for two months? No, because there are day numbers, so you can do it whatever fits you. And so it's simply reading the Bible. So I encourage readers to, it's not just reading the devotional. I would love for you to open your Bible and turn to Exodus, turn to Leviticus, turn to Acts, and read that 1 or 2 chapters for the day. And then what I've done is I've just summarized your reading for the day very simply. I have 4 kids. I'm a simple-minded person, but I believe in a really big God and in his power. And so that is the heart that I wrote from, because I know that that's God's, he loves his children. He doesn't want to overcomplicate things, but he wants you to know that you are loved and that you can walk where he leads you and you can go where he leads you. And so what I wrote then is just an encouragement for that day, something from that section. And then what I encourage you, and kind of like what you were mentioning about the readings of all, that you grew up doing, of the Israel, in Israel, what they do, and is there are 3 different verses each day that I did not write in the devotional. You actually have to look them up yourself. And so my encouragement as you go through this is, yes, read your daily reading, but then also go into your Bible and read further and read the context of what those verses are. Maybe write them down in a journal. But that way, maybe underline them in your Bible. I love to underline things. And that way you don't start off knowing your way through the Bible. You have to pick it up and read it like anything else. It's like Jesus longs for us. He calls us his friend, that he wants to be our friend. And the only way to get to know, for me, my friends, is to intentionally reach out to them, to intentionally ask them to do things, to intentionally spend time with them and listen to them. And that's what Jesus, as our Savior, as our Messiah, longs for his children, his believers, his followers to do with him. And so that is just a way that you can look up the scriptures. It's simply a guide to walk with you through the scriptures.
The logic and reasoning, intentional or not intentional, is not wasted on me, as there was no New Testament at the time of Jesus. Mm-hmm. So in understanding what the Pharisees, what the Sadducees, what the teachers of the law, what Paul would have been operating under would have been the first 5 books of the Bible. So by taking you from the first 5 books into the 4 Gospels, you're setting the stage for the foundation of understanding, of knowing why Jesus quoted what he quoted to Satan 3 times. You now know where that is in Deuteronomy.
Yes.
When you see the statement that Jesus makes to the Pharisees that you blaspheme the Holy Spirit, well, you have to do a little digging to find out that that's the 3rd commandment. And if you read the text in its original text, it says that thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain, or you shall not be found guiltless. We've abbreviated that, but that's the reason why he said to them that this wicked generation will not inherit the kingdom of heaven. He can only judge them under the law in which they were operating under at the time, which was the Mosaic system, Mosaic law, which is clearly outlined in the first 5 books. So by taking you on this journey to understand the foundation of the thought of a people being set apart, the journey, why the Passover was taking place, why Jesus was the Lamb of God, why he entered when he did, what happened to him, how this parallels the journey of Exodus chapter 12, how this parallels the understanding of Leviticus 16, and why they put their hands on the goat, and why Jesus had his hand, the Rome laid their hands on Jesus, and Israel laid their hands on Jesus, and this was Levitical. This was part of the system, the sacrificial system. So even an understanding of Matthew 5:17, I didn't come to abolish the law of the prophets. Well, if you don't know what the law is, you have no idea. What is he talking about? How did he fulfill that? Where does that fit? So I think that it is insightful. It takes people on a different path than the one-year reading Bible cycle. I'll read the Bible in a year. Okay. Well, you read the Bible in a year, but what have you absorbed? What have you digested? You get the check mark in the box, but have you really gone on a navigated path of understanding and relationship? And I think you've done a wonderful job of that. As I look at each day, these are very easy to navigate. The focus is not on the guide, the focus is on the Bible. And what this has done is it says, okay, let me help you navigate just a couple of nuggets. I'm going to take you into the mine, and I'm going to say, here's a diamond, here's a diamond, and here's a diamond. Here's a chunk of gold, here's a chunk of gold, here's a chunk of gold. Now that you know in this room, in this cave, in this place, there's at least 1, 2, or 3 nuggets. Right? You now realize there's a whole lot more. Right? I've gotten you started. Okay. Now it's time for you to turn on your headlamp, to take your pick, right? And for you to go dig and go mine for yourself and see what that says to you.
Right.
So it helps you to navigate, helps you to walk through, but also challenge you to think differently than you have approached the scriptures before. And I found that to be encouraging. I found it to be practical. I found it to be, in some cases, there are the obvious lessons. In other cases, there's the very subtle lessons. And kind of like your journey with Kyle, there are some big aha moments, and then there's some kind of stand back because up close you cannot see it. If you don't step away from it and see the larger picture of it, then you miss what God's trying to show you. And we tend to get hung up on words, especially with words we don't understand. If you want to do a really deep dive, have this and a concordance, have this and a dictionary, a Bible dictionary with you. Look up the names of people. Every person's name in Hebrew has a significant meaning.
Right.
They are not random. And there's no randomness in the Bible. So when you read about the names of people and you say, well, I have such a hard time because of the names. Get yourself a book, a dictionary, look up the name, and when you find out that this name means Ben Shalom, the son of peace, oh, I never thought of that before. Why is this person's name? Because names are significant. They were so significant that our dominion, our authority came when God brought everything to Adam to give a name.
Right.
And our authority, a diagnostician, a doctor, until he has a name, he can't treat your daughter. Until they could name what she had, they could not develop the proper treatment. Well, God uses names. Of course, he knew not all Hebrew speakers, not all Hebrew readers, but he left them in there. Okay? And in the translations, the names have not been translated. If you'll notice, the names are not translated in any of the translations. You have to do that for yourself. And when you decide to go deeper and you embrace the Bible as something to become a part of you, this helps you navigate to get you started. It kickstarts it. And then it gives you points of conversation to share with others. That's where the revival comes in. And if you look at the picture in Acts chapter 2, they gathered together daily to study the apostles' teaching, and they broke bread together, and they had fellowship together, and no one was lacking for anything. And the last line, as Acts chapter 2 closes, is the power. And God added to their numbers daily those being saved. By studying the Word, you show yourself approved of God. But to navigate on your own, in the privacy of your own home, a companion to it, such as this, will make the journey lighter, easier, more understandable, and plug you into something that will excite you, that will make you want to share. The book is called Revive Daily, a devotional journey from Genesis to Revelation by Laura Kim Martin. You can find out more about them at timetorevive.com or reviveschool.org. If you want to take the fast way, just go to agdenianation.com, and right there on the home page, you'll see Laura's name. It'll say, love the interview, get the book. Click that button, and a book will be on its way to you. Laura Kim Martin, Revive Daily, a devotional journey from Genesis to Revelation. Thank you. Thank you for writing this. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for what I believe is going to be a movement that's going to break out in small groups, and people are going to want to do this together and share and discuss, and this is going to be a part of that new awakening that we're all hoping for, not only here in the West, but all over the world. Thank you for sharing this with us.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for having me on today.
You're welcome. God bless you. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.